Hey YouTube, it's your girl Dr. J, and I decided to come back and do another quick video on acceleration. Um, and acceleration is a big topic in the world of gifted, and so this is something that I wanted to go ahead and tackle because I've seen a lot of conversation about it, a lot of people ask me about it, and so I wanted to go ahead and do a quick video, but y'all know my videos are never quick, about acceleration. First, there's three different types of acceleration that we tend to see. You have subject acceleration. That's where a child may be accelerated in certain subjects, but they stay in their regular grade for everything else. You have whole grade acceleration. That's where a child will skip a grade. A lot of times we hear people talk about that they skipped a grade or their child skipped a grade. That's when instead of just going ahead in, let's say, math or reading or something like that, they actually will, they may be at second grade level, but instead of doing a second grade curriculum, they do an entire third grade curriculum. So that's a whole grade skip. And then we have something called radical acceleration. Radical acceleration is when a child may skip 4 or 5 grade levels. That's when you see, a lot of times we see people talking about, or we see news articles about kids who are, in college as full-time college students at 12 and 13 and 14 years old. That's radical acceleration. My family, we do two types of acceleration in our homeschool. We do whole grade acceleration and subject acceleration. So all of my kids have a 1-year grade skip right now. Speedster got his grade skip actually when he was in private school. He was grade skipped into kindergarten, and we kept that grade skip when we decided to come home and homeschool. The Wonder Twins got their grade skip from me. They were grade skipped into kindergarten because it just made sense for them to start kindergarten because they missed the cutoff date in our state to start kindergarten by 4 days. And so it just didn't make sense to, have them sit out a whole year. And so they got their grade skip from me. And when I decide if a child is ready for a whole grade skip is I look at everything that they're doing. I think sometimes people confuse doing a subject grade skip with a whole grade skip. Your child does not have to skip an entire grade to do work at a higher grade level. For instance, Speedster is in 4th grade. He's doing math, like the math that he's doing is at the 5th and 6th grade level. But he doesn't have to be a 6th grader in order to do math at the 6th grade level. He's doing a geography program that's designed for kids in in middle and high school. And so he can do that even as an elementary school student. The Wonder Twins are in 2nd grade. And even though they're in 2nd grade, they're doing a science curriculum that's designed for middle school students. But they're not middle schoolers. They're not. So they're doing science at that level. Faster Fox is doing her math at a grade level higher, and she's using a program designed for gifted mathy kids a whole year ahead of where she is. But I didn't do a full grade skip for her. And the reason is because when you do a whole grade skip, you want to make sure that the child is ready for everything that comes in that grade area. Okay. Sometimes people think about, well, if my child is working at this really high level in the subject, I need to skip them ahead. But we never see, you don't do remedial work in a grade skip. Okay, so you want to make sure that if you do a whole grade skip, the child is working everything at that whole grade level. Now, my kids are on the cusp of being ready for a grade skip. And so instead of giving them a whole grade skip, what I did was I did grade banding. And so the Wonder Twins are working at the 2nd and 3rd grade level. So what that means is that they're currently enrolled in the 2nd grade. But I give them both 2nd and 3rd grade work. And then at the end of the year, if they have finished all of the work that I would expect and society would expect from a 3rd grader, then they will have finished 3rd grade, and then next year they will start into 4th grade. If they're only halfway finished, with their third grade curriculum. Then next year I will do a grade band for third and fourth grade. And then we'll see if they finish third grade and finish all of fourth grade, or they may finish third grade and finish part of fourth grade. So I'm always going to be realistic in the work that they're doing. I'm never going to have them have a full grade skip if they're just not ready for that full grade skip. Another thing that you want to think about is make sure that you separate, is a child ready for work in this area? Do they need remedial help, or is it a disability? For instance, my kids have dyslexia and dysgraphia. Okay, dysgraphia means that their writing output is always going to, their physical handwriting output is always going to be, is always going to impact their output. And so it doesn't make sense to hold them back because of their handwriting, even though we still remediate handwriting. But I wouldn't keep Speedster from a grade skip because of his handwriting, because he has a diagnosed disability that is probably going to follow him throughout his life. And so he is just going to have to learn how to accommodate that disability. So a disability does not impact a grade skip. But if your child is just having trouble in an area, that does impact a grade skip. And so you want to make sure that, you know, if your child, let's say your child is in the fourth grade and they're doing, let's say half of their work they're doing at the fifth grade level, and a quarter of their work they're doing at the sixth grade level, but a quarter of their work they're doing at the third grade level, okay? But they're in fourth grade, okay? Since they are getting remedial work, they would not qualify for a grade skip, okay? Because they're already behind in grade level. And so you can't say, well, they're skipping a grade, they're just going to get remedial work for 2 years. They can do subject acceleration in the subjects that they're really great at, and then work on that remedial work. And then when they get to grade level at that remedial work, but if they start to work above grade level, then that's when you want to consider a whole grade skip. Radical acceleration is an entirely different beast altogether. And for radical acceleration, not a lot, even children that are on the exceptionally to profoundly gifted continuum, you still don't see a lot of radical acceleration in it. Now, radical acceleration is amazing for kids that it just makes sense for. I know some people who have kids that are radically accelerated. I know one who, her daughter is finishing up her master's degree, and I'm not even sure that she hit 18 yet. She may be 18. And she's doing phenomenal, but it just made sense for that child. Not a lot of kids are ready for radical acceleration. When you start thinking about radical acceleration, if your child is, 7, 8, 9, and you say, okay, I think my child is ready for high school, or I think my child is ready for college. Some of the things that you're really going to be looking at is not just their academic output in one area, but their academic output in every area. So if a child is ready to start high school when they're just now finishing up elementary school, you want to look and see if they're ready in every single area. So it doesn't matter if they write and read above grade level, but they're doing math or science below grade level, that wouldn't qualify them for radical acceleration. That may qualify them for radical subject acceleration, but it wouldn't qualify them for radical whole grade acceleration. And so that's something that you always want to be cognizant and conscious of. I know, like for Speedster, I'm confident that he's probably ready for a grade skip, because even though he's dyslexic, and that is a disability, his grammar and his writing are good, not his physical handwriting, because we got dysgraphia. But in order to really judge his language art skills, I put him in a class where I was not his teacher. He had a teacher, and I was able to have his work, he was able to submit his work, and I was able to get feedback from a teacher where he was accelerated by 2 years. So he was everybody else in the class was a minimum of 2 years ahead of him in grade and age. And he made the honors roll. So he made the honors roll for the entire program, and the teacher said, okay, now he's ready for the next course. So I know that even with his dyslexia and even with his dysgraphia, when it comes to output, he is providing output at that higher level. And then his math is being done at that higher level. His science is being done at that higher level. So for all of his core subjects, he's working pretty much above grade level. And so we can go, okay, yeah, it makes sense for us to start to consider a grade skip. But I'm still not rushing into that grade skip because it's more to consider than just academics. It's also outside opportunities. My children run track, and so they enjoy being able to have time to go out and run track, and they run both indoor and outdoor track. And so that takes up a lot of time in the summers, and then for indoor track, that's in the winter time. And so I don't want them bogged down so much with their academics that they don't have time to participate in their extracurricular activities. My children dance, and they spend a lot of time at the dance studio, and then they have a big recital every year. And I don't want us to be so academic focused that they don't have an opportunity to do those extracurricular activities that they enjoy. My kids participating in vendors competitions and other various competitions, and a lot of times those are based on your grade level. And so I don't want to accelerate my child to the point that they start to fail and they start to falter because I skipped them too much. And for instance, when it comes to competitions, most science competitions, in addition to the science work your child does, they want to see your child present. And while my child can probably think at a much higher level and he does science at a really high level, he presents, like a 8-9-year-old. And so if I radically accelerate him and all of a sudden he's at a science fair and he's competing against 12 and 13-year-olds, but he's 8 or 9, and he talks like an amazing 9-year-old, but he's nowhere near the amazing 12-year-olds that I said were his peers. That's not fair for him, because now he's feeling like a failure, or he's not, doing well, not because he's not good, but because I accelerated him beyond his ability. And that's just not fair. And so I want to make sure that I'm not pushing him to beyond his capabilities. And the biggest thing that I remind myself all the time, and I want to remind other parents, especially parents of gifted children, is that it's the whole child. We want to always consider the whole child, and not just kind of that academic output or that intellectual output, because there's also, asynchronous behavior. There's also overexcitabilities, helping them get a handle on sensory processing issues. And some of that just comes with maturity. And maturity kind of takes its own sweet time, and it comes when it comes. And emotional maturity comes when it comes. So a child can be intellectually mature, but not yet at that emotional maturity that's needed or expected of a college student. And so we want to make sure that we're balancing those whole child needs. Another thing that's extremely important for people to think about is that with grade skips and acceleration, you don't get a chance to take it back, especially when you start to do acceleration like for high school and college. So if you say, okay, my child is a high school student, bam, okay, period. Here's where we are. Yeah, okay, so you don't get to take that back. And so could Speedster probably do that, work at a middle school level? Yes, but I don't want to get the clock ticking for middle school until I know that he's ready. Because you only get so many years for middle school. And then if I push him too fast, if I say, yes, you're in middle school, and the next year you're going to be in high school. Okay, if I push him to start high school, let's say in 2 years, okay, when he's, he'll be 10. Okay, if I say, okay, you're going to start high school in 2 years. Okay, in that 2 year time, if I start him in high school, the clock's ticking. I got 4 years. That's it. Okay, because when you apply for college, they're going to say, give me your high school transcript. And I can't have a high school transcript that's 6 and 7 and 8 years long. And if I say that he's in high school and they and then I, figure out, oh wait, I need to take this grade skip back. And then I go to submit a transcript and they see that he took algebra 6 years ago, but he's only at algebra 2 or something like that, that's not going to make sense. And so that can really negatively affect my child. And so you don't get to take a grade skip back. You don't get to say, oh, my child is radically accelerated and they're in college. They're college freshmen, and there's lights and cameras and everything because your child is a college freshman at 12 years old. And then we go to check on them 5 years later and they're now a college sophomore. That's not going to be seen as a success. And so you want to really, make sure that before you jump into that radical acceleration, you really thought about everything, because the clock starts ticking at that point. And even with grade skips, you want to be careful with grade skips, because sometimes for scholarships, it's not just grade, but it's also age that is a factor in there. And so sometimes some merit-based scholarships are not tied to grade age, but you have some organizational scholarships that are. Like there are some scholarships that are available from USDA. There's some scholarships available from NASA. There's some scholarships available from the National Science Foundation. There's scholarships available from these are amazing, amazing scholarships. They'll pay for not just the first 4 years of school, but they'll pay for all your schooling up through a PhD. But there's a catch. You got to be 18 or 17. And so you want to think about that. Like, okay, if I radically accelerate my child, am I ready to pay for college out of pocket? Because even though they may have the grades, they may not meet the age requirement that is posted for a scholarship. And people say, well, age discrimination is not legal. Well, that's only one way. Age discrimination is not legal if a person is 45 or older, but it is legal to discriminate against a person based on their age on the younger end. So it is perfectly legal for a scholarship to say, this scholarship is only for children that are 17 or older, or this scholarship is only for children that are 18 and older. And so that's another part of radical acceleration that you really have to think about. Some schools, they would love to have a young child on campus, and they will extend those scholarships to younger children, but sometimes they won't. And so you have to balance all of that in together. If you have a child that, wants to play sports when they go to college, and, they may be, really great academically, but they also may be really great and have a passion for that sporting area. Well, you got to make sure that NCAA rules are going to let a 14-year-old be on the field with 22-year-olds. And if that's not the case, then your child may have to forfeit their youth and the fun and vigor that they get of playing sports just so they can go to college early. And then you start to think, was it necessary for them to go to college early, or could they just spend more time just kind of in this kid world and just doing kid stuff before I move them up into the adult world? For some kids, it makes sense for them to be radically accelerated. I know kids that have done it with absolute success, and they are thriving. It was what was needed for them. There was no other option. This was the best option. Their life is great. So I am definitely not against radical acceleration. I've seen it. I've seen it be successful, and I've seen people do amazing things with it. But radical acceleration tends to make sense for very few people. And so when you start to think about, do you want to do radical acceleration, think about the whole package. When you talk about whether or not it's time for a grade skip, remember, grade skip is everything. The whole curriculum is grade skipped ahead, not just pieces of the curriculum. And then subject acceleration, you can accelerate a child in absolutely any subject you like. Any subject is fine. So subject acceleration, you can do it for core subjects. You can do it for other subjects. It's fine. You just want to make sure that you're taking good notes, and you are thinking about how you're going to write their transcript and how that is all going to go in there together. So I hope this helps. If you have some questions, feel free to write them in the comments box, and I'll get back with you as soon as possible. This is Dr. J, and I'm out. Bye-bye.